Hello and welcome to this Robocraft 2 guide about how to make stuff on the nameplate. In this case, 3D text. It's not really 3D, but you get this kind of nice 3D effect. As you can see, I've been experimenting quite a lot with the nameplate. This is actually not even all the different things I've made, but here's some stuff I'm happy about. This is probably one with most widespread use. If you just want to have cool looking text, not understanding anything about how it actually, like the technicalities, how it works, you can just copy the code in the video description, and all you need to do is change the colors to whatever you like it to say. The colors being one up here, right? And also there's like one more row that you can't really see with like the front color. And that's all you have to do. It will look good. And of course, whatever you want it to say here. But you have to change every single row. But if you want to understand the underlying mechanics, how stuff overlap, because it's like tricks to make stuff overlap, we are going to use sort of Reddit tags, right? Stick around. I think you will find it interesting. Yeah, also the assets like links to those tags, like a list of most tags you can use on the nameplate, will also be in the video description. So let's talk about how stuff overlap. On the nameplate, stuff will overlap from right towards the left-hand side and from below towards above. Normal text, like A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, will overlap like this. Special alt characters will also follow the same rules. But when it comes to normal characters and special characters, they kind of mix in a way that depending on direction you look at them, different things will end up on top. I suspect you can use this for some cool kind of effects. I'm toying myself with the idea of making like a smiley face that looks like happy from one direction and sad from the other direction. Now, the important thing to know here is that it's not how it looks on the nameplate, left to right, from below to above, that decides what comes on top. It's in what order stuff appears in the actual code. So B will end up on top of A here, regardless if it actually appears towards the right or left hand side on the nameplate. And the same goes for stuff on this row will end up on top of stuff on this row, regardless if it appears on top or below or above on the nameplate. So the thing we're using here, you can kind of skip the no break here. It's to make sure just that no break can be used to make sure lines don't break where I don't want them to. But I don't think we need it. So C space is positioning the letters. So let's put this to 0. You can see they're now kind of spread out. Oh, now I actually got the line break here. Interesting, I didn't want one. So maybe we needed that. Let's add that one back. So you can see now they're further apart. If we make this smaller, you can see that they glide together here. And now they start overlapping a bit. If you overlap them enough, like if this number is high enough, stuff to the right-hand side will appear on the left-hand side. So that's the C space command. Let's put it back to like 60 where it overlaps a bit. The other thing I'm using here is line height. And line height, again, can also be a positive or negative number. So with line height 0, they will end up on top of each other. Line height 20, that means that they will kind of go 20% down compared to like a full row down. Like a full row, like you normally see, is 100%. But if you put it to minus instead, it will appear above. And you can see it's still on top, despite actually like now having the opposite position visually. Since it's the same position in the code, it will still appear on top. Which means with code, you can decide if they should overlap from the left towards the right-hand side, or from the right-hand side towards the left, from above to below, or from below to above by manipulating line height. So you're not like forced to have them actually overlap just in a certain way, since you can kind of affect how that happens. And that's some really good knowledge. if you want to experiment and try to do different things. You don't really need this to do 3D text, but to do more complicated stuff, it's really useful to know. Yeah, that was what I wanted to talk about here. There's also one little thing I use to, one other thing I use for 3D text, and it's something called position. And what position does is kind of shift stuff like towards the right or left hand side. So if I put kind of position 10% here, well, actually I need to put it on the same row here. Let's put it, because that one actually, line height goes for every single line below where you wrote line height. So it will just keep, like if I add rows, it will just keep that rule until I either put another line height or I go like this, etc. Right? And with slash and then line height, because that will stop that from happening. But position need to be on the same row, so I can actually shift stuff here with position, which means like stuff will be shifted on the nameplate. Anyway, so let's get back to the actual nameplate here and what I want to show. So again, I don't think I need no break here. That's just to make sure nothing line breaks. And here you can see line height is 1%, so every consecutive row will just be like a little tiny bit below the first one. The rule from before is that the last line will be the one ending up on top. So there's actually one row you can't see here. This is the one here that will end up on top. For every row will be another % down, and I'll shift every row another % in position towards the right hand side. I could shift it to get shadow in like different directions by, for example, having a negative line height here to shift it kind of downwards instead. I could also shift it to another side by just putting a negative sign in here as well. And that's all you need to know to do this text. So the last row is the one ending up on top here. Here I made a little extra effect, put like a little lighter in the end. You can see that here on this, I added like another color for the first row, and then all these rows will have this color, which is kind of a dark red. This is a bit lighter red, and then the last row that we again don't see. You can fit a lot more rows in the nameplate than you can visually actually see inside of the game. It's not really limited by amount of rows, it's only limited by amount of characters. So this is the last row here. So yeah, really cool effect. You can see here if you look really close that is actually a bunch of layers on top of each other. Yeah, I think that's it. Hope you enjoyed this guide. Especially I think you will find this information useful regarding like how stuff overlap and how you can manipulate that. If you have any kind of nameplate related questions, just ask them below this video. I will answer to the best of my abilities. If it's something that kind of benefits from having some type of visual guide, I will make a visual guide about that. If it's some kind of fun challenge, if I think it's possible to make, I can even try to make the stuff you're asking. Yeah, I think that's it. Cheers.